I grew up in a small community called the UDX Square, located in the north end of Halifax. Many of us referred to the community as the box because there were many experiences that I think people in mainstream society just don't face on a daily basis. My nickname was Hot Rod. I was this skinny little kid, 110 pounds soaking wringing wet. My mom had me, I know she was very young. My mom was 16 years old when she had me. And trying to raise a little black kid in the community, it was quite challenging. The relationship with my mom was a struggle. I was really attached to my mom as a single child. I remember I would never leave her side, right? And I see my mom go through a lot. And I remember she told me that she wasn't going, she was staying home with me. And she told me she was just going to the Derby. Rod, I'm just going to the Derby. And then she never came back for a long time. That hurt me because my mom lied to me. And you know, when you love somebody unconditionally and they give you that lie, it hits you where it hurts. So it was something that kind of stuck with me to the point where I remember it, and I'm 40 years young today. So, that's something that happened to me as a kid, and I can vividly remember it like it's yesterday, and I know she can too. I never really got to know my dad on a personal level until he was released from prison. So my dad done a life sentence. Growing up in the hood, my dad had established somewhat of a name for himself. And my dad was a well-known hustler in the community. School wasn't working for me, although I was sticking with it. So I sold drugs. That's what I knew. I started with a half of 8 and worked my way all the way to an OZ. I would break it down into $20 and $50 stones. I was a good hustler. This all started to change on October 17, 1993.
Are you good? Get off or you're choking me!
In a case that began when a 15-year-old African Nova Scotian boy was arrested by a white police officer. The boy's identity was protected because he was a juvenile, so the case was referred to by his initials, RDS. And his case was talked about from coast to coast. It went to the highest court in the land. It set a precedent, mostly because of comments made by the court.
I was charged with assaulting a police officer, resisting arrest, obstructing justice. I mean, it was numerous charges. I don't even remember them all, but there was 3 right off the hops. That very case was labeled RDS, Rodney Darren Small. These are archives. The appellant RDS was traveling between his grandmother's home and his mother's home on his bicycle. He testified that he observed some people, including women, in the vicinity of a police car on Brunswick Street. The radio transmission indicated that a number of non-white quotation Male youths were seen running from the stolen vehicle and pursuit was underway. When asked by the Crown if he hit the police officer with the bike or his hands, he testified, "I didn't touch him with my bike. I didn't touch him with my hands." The appellant RDS testified he was then grabbed by constable off his bike and put in a chokehold. He could not breathe and was almost knocked out. What I do remember is an approach that the police used in dealing with our youth, and it was called the shotgun approach. So what they would do is they would charge you with as many charges as possible, and then they would come to you closer to your court date, and they would get you to make a deal. So what they would do is say, we'll drop, say I had 9 charges, we'll drop these 6, but we want these 3, the bigger ones, to stick. And I wasn't willing. Constable Steinberg testified that after originally charging the appellant RDS for obstruction, he increased the number of charges after arriving at the police station. Right away when we get out, if not that day, the next day, we got to find a lawyer. I have 9 charges that I have to deal with, and my grandmother doesn't have any money to give up for a lawyer, and my mom doesn't have any money to give up for a lawyer. So we had to try to find legal advice, and lucky enough, my mom knew Rocky. So we went to find Rocky, and we ended up finding Rocky at Dalhousie Legal Aid.
Halifax is a town that there are a lot of segregationists here. We spend more money in a Vogue restaurant than any other single group in this damn city. And I'll bet you $1 that today or tomorrow there'll never be a black working there. Now the issue involved there is, why don't kids feel they can apply at a place like this?
Literally, Rocky's a social activist legend. Rocky was a lawyer on a mission, right? And he wasn't a lawyer just about money. It was a black judge, a black lawyer, black accused, white prosecutor, a police officer who was also a white gentleman. So it was my word against his. The judge ended up using her experience growing up in the community to decide in my favor. That didn't go over well here in Nova Scotia. We then decided that we were going to go up the chain and appeal it to the Supreme Court of Canada, which is where we ultimately won the case. So that case still holds precedence today. But I was warned by my lawyer, Rocky, because at the time I was fully active in selling drugs. I thought that I was, above the law, and in fact, growing up in my community where drug dealing was widely accepted, I just didn't feel that I had to change my ways. 2 weeks later, I was charged in trafficking and narcotics and landed myself in the Waterville institution.
I traveled throughout Canada and the States, speaking at rallies, getting involved in demonstrations. And I did all of that as a way of coming to grips with the fact that we as black people were oppressed, but we had to be responsible to liberate ourselves. In my community, the African proverb of "it takes a village to raise a child" was truly implemented. It was the strength of that community that gave me the strength as I went through my life to overcome many of the barriers that I have faced.
I started to look at it as me poisoning my community. I started to see some of the effects drugs were having. It was starting to dawn on me. And as a young man, I never seen it when I was caught up in it and making money, because I was sold by the materialistic things. We talk about the addiction of drugs. Well, it's quite similar. The addiction to selling drugs is very high too. Rocky was always motivating to me, and he was like, never give up, brother. There's more to you. There's something about you. I really felt like I had a powerful influence in my community. And if I was gonna have this powerful influence in my community, I wanted to make sure that I was giving the right message to these young men. Because in many instances, most black men, especially coming from Nova Scotia, are seen as either drug dealers or pimps.
Come on, you focus. It's gonna rain, hurry up.
And I wanted to change that perspective. First goal was to get my high school diploma. The second goal was to graduate from university. I've done those two things. The next thing is opening businesses. Hey, what's up, fellas?
How you doing, man?
I didn't want to work for a big bank. I didn't want to work for any big corporation where I would be detached from community. David Upton walks through the door.
Right here?
Yeah.
This is the building that they're saying that they can salvage right now.
David actually introduced me to social enterprise. I realized that that was exactly the place I lived. We're talking about social mission and business. And it wasn't soon after that me and Dave began working together on some very interesting projects. I got to learn all these, what I thought were new philosophies, but philosophies that I have been actually implementing since a kid. And that's when I started to realize that Rocky was even a social entrepreneur before social entrepreneurship was social entrepreneurship. It was mind-boggling to me to put it all together. This project, and Ted can speak to the displacement in the history here in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Someone like Chris Clayton or someone to...
Yeah! Oh, cool. So we got one of the hottest, coolest groups right now in the city, plain and simple, and everybody's trying to figure out how can we get involved, right?
And the thing is, we haven't even really taken off.
And we haven't taken off, right?
Yes.
Yet. I feel anybody can make money, but show me you can make money while creating a positive impact. Okay, so thank you guys for coming, man. Looking forward to the next one for sure. Okay, sounds good. You guys have a great day. Yeah, for sure. Okay. I also decided to really step outside of my own circles, and it's not just about primarily African Nova Scotians for me. It's about people that are just need support generally. So I got involved with an organization called 7 Steps Society, that is it's support for lifelong criminals. And you could probably understand the connection there in my life and why I can emphasize with those individuals who are trying to reintegrate back in society. So we'll just hit the studio right up here, right across the street, right at the top level. We can use the studio up there. This is Matt. This is Lance. Lance works here at the studio. Runs the studios.
I work with formerly incarcerated youth. Spent a lot of time in myself. I got close to 15 years in.
Matt got addicted to drugs early on in his life. Led to him being back and forth in and out of prison, right? But with the proper help and support, Matt's been doing quite fine. How long you been clean now?
Almost 5 months.
Almost 5 months, you know what I mean? Seriously.
I'm over here. Good job, man. It's a good job. It's hard to do. I know how hard it is. You know what I mean? It's hard to do. But keep yourself a nice, strong support system. Keep working on expressing yourself and allowing your feelings to come out inside your poetry instead of letting them build up. And that'll help you have that release so that you don't end up turning back to the drugs.
You hear me out there?
Okay, go ahead.
23 Hours a Day by Matthew Bond. Don't worry, you'll get your 1 hour out today, they say. What about the 23 hours that I'm locked away? But I'm hungry. It feels like I haven't eaten in days. Don't worry, I'm sure your lunch tray is probably on its way. What about my medication? I know I haven't had it in at least 2 days. 48 hours later, I still haven't been out of my cell. Feels like I'm living in hell. All for a little bit of weed I try to sell.
Hello.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Guess who's on the line?
Who is it?
You can't hear?
Isha. Hi, Isha. Do I have to be dressed to impress though? 'Cause
No.
I'm in my business. Okay.
Dressed to impress.
Okay.
You don't have to be dressed to impress. No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, goodbye.
Mommy! Yeah, she wants to come. Yeah, we'll pick Nia up and then we'll go to McDonald's.
Look at this place, never change.
Never changed. They did what's the name's house over finally.
Oh, are they still there?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, people put the money together and made sure that.
That's Shirley's car?
That's Rod's car. That's Rod's car. You didn't know he had a
Oh,
car?
that's the little one you used to bring to my house.
Yeah. Hi, Nia.
Hello.
So a lot of my motivation, it comes from my children.
Oh, thanks.
What's it called again?
Kids Den.
Most people look at me, they're like, you got 6 kids? I was like, yep, I got 6 kids, right? I own that. Seriously.
Hello.
What's up, babe? How are you?
Good.
She's so calm, She's What'd you do today? Shop?
No, I wish. She did buy a crazy pair of Adidas pants, though. They're just
From
like
where?
the only red ones.
You got your belt on?
I do now.
Yeah, Chi-Chi got all the swaggle.
Does she?
I want a pair of the pants that she just got, but I want the ones that rip off. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? They're back in style?
Yeah.
My kids inspire me to do the best that I can do so that ultimately they can be able to, speak about their dad in a positive manner. Something that really stuck with me was one day when my son came home from school and he said, Dad, at school today they say, well, what does your dad do? All the kids in my school, well, their dad is a police, some of their dads are police officers or successful businessmen or this. That hit home, man. That hurt me. That hurt me because my son couldn't brag about what his, anything that his dad was doing that was positive or, successful in society. So that really landed home and just really drove me to want to do the best I could do for them so that they could have somebody to ultimately look up to and own. Like, that's my dad type of thing. Mom, you have a milkshake you want me? I'm going to put it in a glass for you. Chi, you want a drink? Cherish, you want a drink?
Things got better between us because we weren't close, right? And then after he started having his children, where I felt like I wasn't the mom that I should have been. So I made sure I would always be there for my grandkids.
Tell me how good it is. That's the watered down juice.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Is it good, Cherish?
It's watered down, ain't it? Be real.
No.
It's alright.
Let me try.
Wait till your father takes.
I try?
Yeah.
That's exactly what. It's not. It don't taste bad though.
It's orange puff and cream soda puff.
Good.
Flat.
They thought I was hard on them. Man used to come up the street just like this. Look. It was so bad. Everybody in the community knew too. Look, just like this. Just like this. In hand.
Where's she at? I know you seen him. Where's she at? They're all saying, look, they can see her coming. Your mom's coming because your mom's coming. I'm already on my hightail trying to get down to my nan's house because I know I got to get to the safe haven.
My biggest obstacle within me that I have to overcome and own is really developing a positive relationship with my children's moms. And that's something that you know, that's an obstacle in my life that's really dear to my heart because ultimately it affects how my kids feel about me. I think it's important to pass that message on to the many young men out there that still live that type of lifestyle and don't understand how important fatherhood is in this society. To have our moms doing everything is just so overwhelming for them. It limits their success because they're focused on doing other things in life that the father figure and the father role in the family household usually takes on. I have to own that as a young man. Them kids are smart, man. Our kids will do better once they know better, but it's up to us as a society to teach them. They see and they start to believe because I was just like them not long ago.